All right, friends, I'm so excited to hear from my guest speaker tonight. So, I'm sure all of you guys, if you don't recognize Laura's face, I'm sure you recognize her before and afters. Okay, you girl, you've had some incredible results with our products. I know you and your team are out there killing it. I actually did a Zoom with you last night. It was so cool. It was one of the first real personal conversations I feel like we've had, and we have so many similarities. And so I'm just really excited for you to talk tonight, hone in on some of the things that I've already been talking about that you guys have heard me say again and again and again, and maybe hearing it in a different way or a different, tweak on it. Some of it may sink in, but I'm just so dang excited for tonight. So Laura, if you want to unmute yourself, and just introduce yourself, your why it works, tell us a little bit of your story, the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm hoping that my voice stays intact. I started to feel a little sick today, so we're gonna roll through this. But I'm Lara Floyd. If you don't know who I am, I started with this company almost 8 years ago, which every time I say it, I'm like, that's a long freaking time. It's the longest I've ever been committed to anyone, including my fiance, and that's just a lot, you know? So we're coming up on 8 years. I mean, life looked so different before I joined this. I was 20 years old. I had just dropped out of college because I couldn't afford to attend school anymore. I don't know if anyone has walked through that, but student loans just weren't a route that I could take, and I couldn't pay out of pocket. So unfortunately, I had to drop out. And at the time, I didn't have anywhere to go. I don't really have family support. I didn't have a ton of friends in my area. And because I was going to school, I was using that as my housing throughout breaks. And when I dropped out, it was like, not only do I lose school, I lose a roof over my head. And so thankfully, I had a very good friend who flew me across the country to move in with her and her family. And I stayed there for a good bit of time just to get, my feet running under me. I picked up a couple jobs. I started babysitting. I was working at a restaurant as a hostess, and I was getting my bag. I got my first apartment, and I was like, okay, like this is good. Like I have my footing. Maybe college wasn't for me, but like I can do this. And it wasn't until a couple months later I got evicted from the same apartment because I did not, in fact, have that. And again, like I don't know if any of you have ever walked through that, or maybe you've faced evictions or faced, a month where you didn't have enough money to pay your bills. And that was my reality. And I quickly realized that it didn't matter how much I was working. I physically like wasn't able to pay for a lifestyle for myself unless I did something different. And I didn't know what that looked like. Because I was evicted, I didn't have anywhere else to go. I ended up living in a hotel for a short amount of time. When this business presented itself to me, it was when I was living in the hotel, and I was 20, I was working 3 jobs, I was working like, oh gosh, I feel like it was like 80 to 100-hour weeks. It feels like a whole other lifetime ago. But I was working from the time I woke up until the time I went to bed. I was living in a hotel, and I really just remember feeling like there has to be more than this. Like I physically don't have more time. I can't even make enough right now working this much to support myself. Like how am I supposed to keep going? And so when this business presented itself to me, I initially thought, oh, I can't do that. I don't look like that. I don't want to go on trips. I can't even afford to feed myself. And I thought it was really cool what my enroller was doing, but I just thought to myself, like, okay, that's not for me. And it wasn't until a night that I came home. I had worked all 3 jobs. I swiped my key card to get into the hotel room, and I was starving. And it was just a night that, like, when you have a really hard shift and like you come home and all you want to do is just like make a sandwich or like eat a bowl of cereal, like you just want to pig out and then go to sleep. Put a one in the chat if you feel me, because I feel like even just like a hard day of momming, like whatever it is, like you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I had no food, and I realized something has to change. And God is funny like this, because the very next day, the first post I saw on my feed was from my enroller. And it was the very first post that she had ever made that connected with me. And I will never forget what it said. It said, life does not happen to you, you create your life. And that clicked with me instantly. And I was like, you know what? Like I get to create what I want. And so because I was evicted, I had a bunch of things just laying around for my apartment. I had a TV I wasn't using. I ended up taking that to a pawn shop to sell to get the money to get started, because I had $4 in my bank account when I was going to enroll. And so I got the money, I got started, and I ran with it quickly I got myself into the 400 club, and I was making 100, 200, $300 a month, which was all I joined for, because I joined to be able to get groceries and get myself out of debt so that I could continue living, right? Sorry guys, I'm sick. So with that being said, what I learned in that moment is when you get comfortable in this business and you stop working because you've hit where you're going, it doesn't continue. And so I learned very quickly that I hit my goal, I stopped working, and I wasn't commission qualified that month. And it's so funny how God works his ways sometimes, because I was on the It Works cruise in October of 2016, and it was when prelims got dropped from the month before that I wasn't commission qualified. And everyone was freaking out about their 5-figure raise, their 4-figure raise, and everyone's freaking out about their checks, and I opened mine and I don't have one. And that was my never again moment. That was the moment in my business that I decided I was going to go all in, and that I was the only person that could make this work. It didn't matter who my upline was. It didn't matter who was on, like, I was going to make this work because I made the decision. And so November and December were just months of solid growth, growing my team, growing my mindset. January of that following year, so 2 months later, I promoted to executive. February I went Ruby, March I went Emerald, and then that following April I went Diamond and earned a bonus. And that just set me on a trajectory in this business, because I was making not that much at my 3 jobs. And just in going Diamond in that 4-month span of time, I had matched my income with 3 jobs. And I knew I had my hands on something special. 11 months later, we went double. And that's when my story kind of takes a turn, in the sense of I've been double since 2017. But in that time, I have learned so much. I've grown more as a person and grown as a leader. And in the time from promoting until now, I've paid off all of my student loans. I've paid off all of my credit card debt. I'm just a couple $100 away from being completely debt free, and I'll be 28 in like 2 weeks, which is like a huge deal, because I was told that I was going to be paying my debt off, my student loans, everything, until I was well into my 50s or 60s. I mean, gosh, we moved all over the country. We lived in Delaware, we lived in Maryland, we lived in Missouri. Now we live in Florida. We're also making a cross-country move in 6 months, like all over the place. We've traveled the world, we've traveled the country. I found God in this business. I have made the most incredible friendships, built such an incredible community, and truly have just walked into this newer version of myself who I never imagined I would be. My entire life has completely changed because of It Works and because of our team.
I just love that. I know we talked a little bit of last night too, but you talk about transparency a lot with your team, and it shows in when you're talking your story. Like there's a lot of that some people are like, I just can't share these parts. And I love how you're so authentically you. And it just, like you were saying, it took that one post that finally resonated. And when you show up authentically, when you show up with the transparency of like, look, my crap stinks. Like my story is a mess. Because the thing is every single one of our stories is a mess. We've all been through some crap that we are like, dang, this is not what I want to be telling you guys. But I love how you lead with that transparency, and that just breeds a whole different culture within your team, but then also within your following. Like you're not just attracting distributors, you're attracting people who are your people more so, because you do lead first with that transparency. And I just love that. So why don't you walk us through what this is your question list, so you should know where we're going. Why don't you walk us through kind of like what your day looks like, your daily tasks? Because I know your life and your, situation, your days is very different than mine and what I kind of put forward with my team. So I'd love to see kind of what your day looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will preface, I do not have children. So this task, like the way that my days look, will not be realistic if you have children or a full-time job. But I'll tell you how I work my business now full-time, but then I can kind of talk about how I did it when I was working multiple jobs and I didn't have a lot of time. So typically my days now, I wake up, I do not touch my phone. It is a non-negotiable for me. The very first thing I do, I let my dogs out, I get my coffee, I come into my office and I pray over my life, over my business, over my team. I pray for things that I'm wanting for. I pray for healing for certain people in my life. I just pray, because if I don't have God go before me in everything I do, I will fall short in everything I do. And I have done it a million times in my business. I've done it in my life. And he'll let you go as far as you can physically go, but then that's where you stop until you ask him. So I always ask him to go before me. I then work on my self-development. So I will journal. So I have a notebook. I'll fill a page, whatever I feel called to. Some days it's me writing affirmations. Some days it's me writing more prayers. Some days it's me just trauma dumping. Some days it's me just writing, I am triple diamond. I am worthy of $10,000 a month over and over and over again. I mean, whatever. I'm just, whatever is in my head, I'm going to get out onto a page. I think so often we spend so much time pouring into ourselves, which is not a bad thing, but we don't ever pour out. We have so much up here that we need to get out sometimes, and venting and like talking to someone is great, but just getting it out on a paper and not bringing that to someone else is just like chef's kiss. So fill a page in the journal. I will read my devotionals. I have two that I read, so they're like a page and a half, so very quick. And then I will read a chapter from the book that I'm reading. Normally it's a self-development book. Right now it is self-development and spiritual, like kind of combined. Sometimes I listen to a podcast instead of the book. It really just depends. But for me, there are three types of development in this business. There's spiritual development. So that's praying. That is reading your devotional, really working on your relationship with God, being in the word. Then there is also business development, which is the Zooms and plugging into team trainings, like learning about the business. But then there is that level of self-development. So learning about communication, learning about leadership, learning about how to be a better person, whatever it is. So you need all three of those to interlock. And I spend time on all three of those before I start my tasks. So that way, when I go to my team and when I start working my business, I'm already full. I feel good. I've already trauma dumped. I already got everything out of my head. And then I poured some good stuff in and I'm ready to go. So normally, I know it sounds like a lot, but it takes me like 30 minutes, like truly not a long time. And as you start to get into the habit of doing self-development, it gets very quick. So I do my self-development and then I'm looking at my task list and I'm like, thinking through my day. I will post on my story. I post a story of the products, very first thing. I also go on a walk with my dog, so I will share that on my stories as well in the morning. I will post on my TikTok and Reels, so Facebook and Instagram Reels. I content batch every Saturday, so they're already prepped and ready to go. So I just have to click post on all avenues. I will check on my host to post from the day before. I'm going to update my chart with any like declines that went through the day prior and in the morning, tracking my volume. I will, I'm like looking at it, thinking it through. Cause you know, when you do this for so long, you're just like, okay, I know what I got to do and I'm just doing it. And then I look at it and I'm like, wow, this is kind of hard to like say it out loud. I will post on my Facebook and I will normally at that point, that's what I'm texting my team. I'm saying, hey, I'm sitting down. Let's hop on a Zoom. If you need a work Zoom, I'm checking in with my newbies. I am adding tasks into my team chat. And that's when I would go into my follow-ups from the day before. So I'm going to go to the bottom of my Instagram DMs. I'm going to work my way up. I'm going to do it on Facebook. I'm going to do it on my text. That way I don't miss anyone. And then throughout the day is when I'm going to be sending out follow requests on Instagram, sending out friend requests on Facebook. Our goal every day is to do 50 on Facebook and 100 on Instagram. So I'm just doing that scattered throughout the day. Other than that, that's pretty much what I do. Oh, sending out messages, which I do throughout the day as well. But other than that, like that's the big bulk of what I do. And I try to get it all done before noon. So that way the rest of the day, I can do whatever I want. If I want to be lazy and hang around the house, if I want to go out and do something with my friends, I want to run errands, whatever it is, like it's done by noon, the latest like 2 p.m.
I love that. I like how it's so flexible. I feel like sometimes I get so rigid in what I do that like, dude, just chill, like let go, like be a little bit more flexible. And like, it is very different when you have kids. It's like, you have to be a little bit more structured, but at the same time, I just love the flexibility of it. I like how you're like, I want time for me and I'm going to have this done by this time, but however that looks, it's really just going to piece together. And I love that. So tell me about a time in your business where things weren't exactly going your way, where you were like, okay, something's got to give. And what was the pivot you made that got you back on track?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. When you've been in any type of business, even if you had a coffee shop, like there are so many pivots that you have to make when running a team, when you're responsible for other people. And I mean, I have years of missteps and pivots, but one of the biggest pivots that I've made that has paid off in the best way is this time last year. I had fallen all the way down to executive, which some of you might not know, but that is a big drastic drop. And I had to take into full account of, okay, I was in a very, very dark place in my life, but I needed to realize that my business should not equate to where I am in my life, right? And so I had to take full account of what I was doing as a leader, what I wasn't doing as a leader, what I was doing in my business, in conversations, in showing up on my social media. I took full responsibility for everything. Even if it wasn't my fault, I was like, you know what? I could have done XYZ and made it better. And in that, I realized that there was a huge missing piece with training in our team and culture in our team. And I had focused so long for so many years on chasing the dollar, chasing the next mass enrolling month, chasing the next rank, and chasing all these things that I forgot about the people. And it didn't mean that I didn't love them. I just didn't show them that I loved them. And in that, I wasn't training them correctly. I was churning and burning. If you've been in this business for, I mean, even longer than 6 months, you know exactly what I'm talking about, where you would enroll 10, they would all quit, you'd enroll 10, they'd all, and it never stuck. And I had to realize, like, it's not that people don't want this or aren't good at it, or you know, they don't want it or whatever it is. Like, it's me. Like, I'm not giving them something to want. I'm not showing them how to do it. And so the pivot that we made was next level. We created a culture for my team, and we created this whole community of women who wanted freedom, whatever that looks like for them. Like, that's what we wanted. And I know you guys have done something super similar with legacy. Like, that looks different for everyone, but how do we get there, right? And so I spent the last 350 some days. January 16th is like the official like date of rebuilding everything. We started from no training to now having a very like in-depth training system that everyone is benefiting from. We went from having one person at conference to having 7 to now having an organization of 50 plus working people, which I've never seen before in my business. And it all came from me and pouring into myself. The amount of books that I read on culture, the amount of books that I read on leadership, on communication, learning how to listen and stop talking so much. As I say, speaking on a Zoom, but truly, like, I poured into myself and I became a student again. And just because I'm good at this business does not mean that I can be successful alone. I have to teach other people how to be good at this. And they don't have to come in and be naturally good at it. I can teach anyone how to be good at this. And when I realized that, it changed everything. And so really poured into culture, really poured into really just loving people and learning how to be less read, put that side aside, compartmentalize that. I can be read for myself, and I can push myself, and I can have goals, and I can chase things. But I needed to learn to soften my heart, let people in after being hurt so much, and learn to be more emotionally intelligent and get to know people, love them, know what's going on in their life, know what they're working towards, and really work with them one-on-one, no matter what their goal was, and not pushing someone when they weren't ready for it. And I have learned that the key to this business, there are a lot of keys, but when it comes to any aspect of what we're doing, leadership, brand new distributor, it's patience and consistency. If you can be consistent doing something long enough, and you can be patient in that season of not seeing results right away, it will pay off exponentially every single time. Because a year ago, I had one person on my team as a double diamond lifetime being here for 7 years. And now our team is just, I mean, I'm biased, but like truly, I think we're the bee's knees. Like, we're like the best team ever. But That is the biggest pivot, is just learning to take responsibility for what is your fault. And even if it wasn't directly your fault, just taking responsibility, figuring out how you can do it better the second go around, the third go around, however many go arounds, and just doing it until you get it right. Not quitting, and just doing it until you get it right.
I love that. All of that was just so good. And you guys are the beefies too. You guys are pretty cool over there. I feel like you are just killing it. I love seeing all the things. So this is a curveball question. It's not on your list, so we're gonna roll. But you guys are clearly working towards triple. Like that's what's going on here. I'm in the same boat. Like we talked about last night, it's a very different time for us both, coming from what we did last year into this new season. We have a new appreciation, a new outlook. And with that, the cool thing about this business is that up promotions, like the tippity tops, really are irrelevant because that's one. Versus to get there, it's so many promotions. And so that's what this season is for us, is how excited we are for you guys promoting. So you've got team right now who's working for Ruby, Emerald, Diamond. And so within the next 90 days, how are you coaching them, or what would you say to someone who's looking at like, I need to go Ruby this month and I want to be Diamond this, in the 90 days, or they're pushing for these promotions and these big goals. What would you say to them?
Have your task list and use it as building blocks. I think so often people come into this business and they're like, okay, I got to make $500 a month and I have to do all of this work. But then they freak out because then they see all of the work that they have to do, or they don't know how to get there. Have a task list. Truly like something tangible, whether it's written down, whether it's in the habit tracker app, in your notes app. I don't care what you have to do, but have a physical tracker that you can track what you're doing, because if you cannot track it, you cannot scale it. Okay. And so many times in my business, I was like, yeah, I'm working hard. Like I've been working for like 12 hours, and then I don't enroll. Like I check my screen time, in 6 hours I was on TikTok. I don't even know how you can spend, well, I do, you get down a scroll hole, and anyway, whole other story. But if you can't track it, you can't scale it. Okay. So you need to know what you're doing and what you're doing well. And you need to know what you're not doing and how you can implement it into your business. Okay. Because the amount of people that I've talked to that they're like, I'm doing everything. And then I'm like, okay, what are you doing? And they're like, everything. And I'm like, okay, let's go down the task list. Are you sending out messages? Yeah. Okay. Are you growing your network? Yeah. Are you putting up content? No. Well, I thought you were doing everything. You know what I mean? So having a specific task list in front of you, I'm telling you, it is the key to everything. If you have your task list, if you're on my team, there's no excuse. The task list is everywhere. And I'm sure it's the same thing for you too. Have a task list, chip away at things one by one. Stop trying to do everything all at once. Like just focus on one thing. Something that really, really helped me in the beginning of really taking my business seriously was utilizing timers. I don't care what you have going on in your life. Timers are like God send. Okay. And what I mean by this is not saying, okay, I have an hour to work, I'm going to set an hour timer. No, 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 no. We're going to break it down even more. Listen, I have ADHD. I got to focus. Okay. So when I look at my task list, I'm like, okay, I got to send out 100 messages. How am I going to do this? What I'm going to do is I'm going to set a 5-minute timer, and I'm just going to send out as many messages as I can in 5 minutes. Sometimes it's 30. Sometimes I go buck wild and get out 50, but sometimes I get distracted and it's like 10. But I did 5 minutes and I was focused and I only did that one thing. And then I can reassess and I'm like, okay, in that 5 minutes, did I do enough that I can move on to something else? If not, I'll do another 5 minutes. If I did, I'm like, okay, what's next? I need to grow my network. Okay, probably takes me about 2 minutes. I'm going to set a 2-minute timer and I'm just going to send friend requests. In that 2 minutes, I'm going to go send out follows. Then whatever gets done, gets done. You know what I mean? So that way, like, there's not pressure on being like, okay, I gotta get out 100 messages. I'm just going to sit here for an hour and I'm going to 1, 2, like, no, just get a good chunk out. And then whatever it is, like reassess, do it again later. That's something that really, really helped me, because I used to think I had to sit at my desk for like 8 hours to get the whole task list done in one sitting. But I just do like 5, 10, 15-minute spurts throughout the day. And that's what has helped me so much. I forgot your initial question.
That was
Oh,
good. If we were talking about like, yeah, helping people who are promoting right now and pushing for that, like what advice you would have for them. But I feel like that was great.
absolutely. So,
We
yeah.
did what, probably in November, I think we launched like a challenge where we took a week where we weren't just tracking each day, like our tasks, but keeping up with it of what it was for the week. And you'll talk about eye-opening, you guys. If you've never done that, I want to encourage you too. So we not only were doing our like task list, but we are like, okay, my goal was 5 posts to post up. I got 7 today. Tomorrow I got 3 or whatever it looked like, and tracked for a week what we got done and what the results of that were. And that will put you in your place real quick. You can't complain that you're not getting the enrollments when you look back a week later and you're like, well, dang, I only talked to 10 people all week long. So tracking it is so good. I love what you said when you're like, if you can't track it, you can't scale it. You can't keep up with it. You can't grow from it, because if you're doing 5 minutes here and 5 minutes there, but you're not tracking anything. Laura says she spent 6 hours, okay, on TikTok. If you're not keeping up with what you're doing, your 6 hours of TikTok, it's still going to exist. It's still going to occur. And you're going to trick your brain into thinking you were working and getting frustrated that this business isn't working when really you were never working to start with. And I love, love, love that, especially when you're pushing for a promotion. When I was pushing for double, it was timers all day long. Like we would sit down and be like 10 minutes. I know roughly I can do this much work. Like you just got to have a way to keep yourself on point. And I love that. So last question I'm going to have for you is, if you could go back to Laura when you started, what is the piece of advice you would give back to the new you, having no idea what was going to change over the next 8 years?
You know what's so funny is I have asked so many people this question in the last year, and this is the first time that I've been asked, and I'm like, wow, so this is how they feel when I asked. I mean, I could say so many things. I mean, me at 20 years old is so different than me now at almost 28 years old. Truly, I feel like the biggest piece of advice, oh gosh, this is hard. I feel like this is so much like pressure. Um, just don't don't quit. Like truly take it off the table, because in the almost 8 years I've been here, quitting was never an option for me. It truly never was. And there's no plan B for your A game, you know? And so for me, I was like, you know what? Like I'm gonna be at the top one day. And that one day could be 30 years from now. And I don't care, because when I'm committed to something, I'm all in, you know? And so I really just I ran with it, and that didn't mean that I didn't have hardships, that things didn't go my way, you know, or that they always went my way. Like I've had a lot of stuff happen in my life and my business, but truly, like at the end of the day, even still, 8 years later, this business is what pays for my groceries. And that's what I joined for. And when you look at it any other way, you're like, oh, well, this girl over here, she joined like a year after me and she's so much more successful. Or this girl over here, like, we're like the same age and she's making more than me. Or, oh my gosh, that girl in our team chat just enrolled another customer and I haven't even enrolled one yet. Like, well, it doesn't matter, because every person's journey is the exact opposite of your journey. We're all on different paths. We all have different lives. We all have different circumstances. Truly, like, just keep your blinders on. Remember why you joined this. I joined this business to pay for my groceries. And as long as that is done, that's all that matters to me. And don't get me wrong, it pays a lot more than that. And I get to do a lot more things because of it. And I'm so blessed and so grateful that this platform allowed me to be here. But I always remember, like I actually talked to one of my girls about this the other day. I just remember, oh God, I'm not gonna cry. What drives me in this business every single day, it's not the money, it's not even the groceries, it's not even my, like, it is my team, but it's not my team, it's not me, it's not my future family, it's not any of that. I remember the pit in my stomach when I didn't have food to feed myself. I remember the pit in my stomach when I was standing in the line knowing that my card was going to decline and hoping that by chance it would go through. I remember the anxious feeling of knowing that I was getting an eviction notice. I remember the stabbing feeling in my body when I knew that I was going to be walking into a hotel room after working 3 jobs. Like those pits that are in your stomach. A lot of the time people think, okay, I have to work this business for my kids. I'm working this business to pay off my debt and all those things, and those things are true. But what drives me is what I'm not wanting, what I know I will never have to experience again because of this business. And that's what pushes me every day. And so what I would encourage you and challenge you to do is figure out what that is for you. What's your pit? What's that pit in your stomach that you're just like, if this happens, I will crumble, right? I will never have to experience being homeless again. I will never have to experience being, I mean, we're humans, we get hungry, but like I will never be hungry and not have access to food. You know what I'm saying? What's your pit? That's what's going to drive you when someone says no. That's what's going to drive you when someone quits, because it's inevitable. I've had thousands of people quit, you know? That's what's going to drive you when volume changes. That's what's going to drive you when you push so hard for a goal and you knew it was going to happen and you miss it over and over and over again. That's what's going to drive you, because you will never have to experience that again. And that's what you can do with this business. And so I know that was a heavy answer, but truly, like, find your pit, put your blinders on, take quitting off the table, because when you take it off the table and it's not an option, trust me, you're going to work your butt off and you will make so much more happen, rather than you have one foot in, one foot out, and you're like, that's okay. If it doesn't work out, I'll just go do something else. Like, okay, then go do something else. You know what I mean? Like, make it work. What's the saying? It's like, SHIT or get off the pot. You know what I mean? Like, truly, like, this business can be a vehicle for you in any avenue you want, for your legacy, for freedom, whatever it is that you're looking for. All you got to do is be consistent. And what we do is so simple. You just have to do it consistently over time. So I hope that was what you were looking for.
I think that was amazing. What better way to end it? Like, dang, that was a good answer. You guys drop like 2, I think, Ron, in the chat, if you thought this was amazing, and thank Laura so much for her time, because I loved all of this. I will definitely get the recording up on my YouTube tonight, and I'm gonna pray us out, and it'll be same time next week. I think I'm liking this whole 8:30 thing instead of 9:30, so we're gonna keep rolling with it for now, you guys. But dear Lord Jesus, thank you so much for this place where we get to come together every week and grow more in our knowledge of our business, more in our knowledge of ourselves, and hopefully a little bit closer to you as well. I'm just so dang excited for what's going on here within this company, within these 2 teams, and everything that is just branching from this. I'm so thankful for Laura and her time, even feeling icky. She still pulled it together to come and pour out love on us, and we're just so grateful for that. Continue to work in her life and her business. Bless what they are working for. And I'm so thankful for everyone who is showing up for themselves. I know you have such incredible things in store for us this year, and even closer this month, and that mountains are going to be moved, chains are going to fall off, and we are so excited and waiting so expectantly and doing the work. We are showing up, we are working in faith, and we're believing for the promises you have for us. And I'm just so excited to watch it all unfold. In Jesus' name, amen. I love you guys, and I will see you guys on next week.